welcome to the June 4th, 2015 TV Toastmasters meeting. I'm Steve Ehrenholtz, the president of TV Toastmasters. We have a nice meeting in store for you this evening. We also have our studio audience here with us. I'd like to introduce tonight's Toastmaster for our meeting. She's going to make sure that our meeting is running smoothly, keep it on time. She's also our current Vice President of Membership. Help me welcome Michelle Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. We do have a guest in the audience. Ben Garrett is joining us. He's going to be our timer. And we also have Rob Pease, who's been a guest previously, who's going to be speaking this evening. We have a great meeting in store for you. And at Toastmasters, we start out first introducing our word counter and our grammarian, who will give us the word of the day. They'll challenge us to use that word while speaking. So Ben, will you please join us to give the word of the day?
Precipitous, which means done rashly, acting too quickly, and without sufficient thought. An example, excessive spending caused the precipitous demise of the company.
Thank you, Ben. Challenge each and every one of you to use that in your speaking today. Now, we go into the fun portion of our meeting, which is table topics. Table topics is our impromptu speaking session. Gives you an opportunity to practice being in the hot spot. So I'm going to introduce our table topics master for today, Emily Garrett.
As you know, most of you know, you have 1 to 2 minutes to answer the question and think of what you're going to say on your way up here. So the folks that are sitting here won't know what the question is until they're called upon. Melanie, when was the last time you tried something new?
Thank you, Emily. What an interesting question. It was actually this past weekend. One of my personal goals is to actually become a grant writer and a grant administrator down the road. So I took a rapid writing course in how to be more effective in your writing every day. And it was an online course that basically times you, not so much in typing, but producing work product and how your workflow, and try to get you more efficient at your workflow. So I actually, for the first time, tried to boil down what my writing process is in general versus my usual sit down and brainstorm and do all that kind of work, piece of paper, or type out what I'm thinking. It actually had to be very structured in an hour and produce quality work in a short period of time. I found that I have a long way to go as a beginner with the process that they talked about. But it's definitely, trying something new is always enlightening, and it enlightened me in my process in areas that I have to grow personally to get to meet my own personal dreams.
If you had to teach something, what would you teach, Rob?
Coincidence that you should ask me what I would like to teach, as I am currently in a transition coach role at my current employer, Convergys. I help people understand new roles and new responsibilities. So I find myself teaching how people can answer customer service questions with an app, which is a very difficult task to teach, because many people don't always share empathy when they're dealing with another situation. But in my job, we have empathy for all of our customers, and we explore how we can better show the customer that we do care about their business. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. And the last one, what one thing have you not done that you really want to do? Carol?
Well, I shall try to not give a precipitous answer because I generally speak first before I think. What would I like to do that I haven't done? I would like to, I teach a class on clean up the clutter. My upstairs I cleaned up and it was that you could feel the peace, and I put all the junk I didn't know what to do with down in the basement. And I have not touched that for quite a few years. And I just started working on that because I'm teaching my class how to clean up their clutter in the garage and in the basement. And I thought I need to be an example. And I've just started doing that. Can't say that I like it, but I am doing it. Don't want to do it, but I'm doing it. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. And that's all we have for tonight.
Thank you, Emily. Always a fun time of our meeting to get you to think on your feet. Some fantastic answers today. Now we're going to transition into our speaking portion of the meeting. We have 3 speakers today and actually 2 different presentations. So the first presentation I'm going to introduce is going to be given by both Emily Garrett and Steve Ehrenholz. They're going to be working from the Communicating on Television manual. Steve will be completing the exercise number 3, while Emily will be working on exercise number 2. Steve is going to be acting as the host, and Emily will be acting as the guest. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
I take pride in the word
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease,
Freedom
like
requires
breast
leadership,
cancer, there are
and
no
leadership requires
parties.
oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
Back. I'm now going to introduce our speakers for this first session. Emily Garrett is working towards her Advanced Communicator Gold. We'll again be doing exercise number 2 from her Advanced Communication on Video manual. And Steve Ehrenholz, Distinguished Toastmaster, is working towards many things. And he'll be, again, doing exercise number 3, communicating on video. This is a 5 to 7 minute segment. Emily and Steve.
Good evening and welcome to TV Toastmasters Interviews. I'm Steve Ehrenholz and my guest this evening is Emily Garrett. Emily is an instructional designer and developer for an insurance company. Emily has an associate's degree in computer programming, bachelor's degree in fine arts and digital design, and a master's in education instruction technology. We're going to learn a little bit more about what is involved with instructional design and development. So help me welcome Emily Garrett. Emily, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Steve.
Would you provide us with some insight into just what exactly an instructional designer and developer does?
Well, basically, Steve, I create online modules and courses. And in the insurance business, there is a lot of different kinds of training that's needed. One example is system training. We have a policy system and we have a claim system. And they're not necessarily intuitive. Not everyone can just go up and figure them all out, although they try to make that as easy as possible. So we provide training for the policy system for not only our internal staff, but our customers as well, our agents who quote our policies. And then our claims system, we have claims adjusters that do all their work in the claims system. And so what they want is small modules that tell them exactly what they're trying to do at that moment.
So is it more like an online reference or a resource that they can go to if they're looking for a specific solution or something that they're trying to do?
Yes. So, we use this, we'll have courses with a couple of segments together, and then when they're in there and they don't know what to do, they can go and find these little bits online to do that, just that one thing they're trying to do.
So do you do that instead of any classroom training? Is classroom training gone?
No, as a matter of fact, we do a lot of classroom training as well. Especially when you have a deadline and you need a lot of groups of people to be trained by a certain deadline, it's easier to set up maybe half-day sessions and pull them in away from their jobs to focus on the training to get them all done in time. And at the same time, we do e-learning modules for all the same training, so that perhaps if all the classroom training is done and a new person gets hired, then they'll have all that same material open to them, even though there aren't maybe a big group of people that need to be trained.
So what is the advantage of having classroom training in addition to the online? Why can't you just go to the all online training?
Some people, not me, online training is my preference, but some people prefer to have an instructor in the classroom and do hands-on exercises and have the instructor help them where they have questions or they get stuck. And also, for people who spend all day on the phone with customers, scheduling them off the phone for a half a day really means getting them away from distractions so they can focus and get all their training done.
So maybe they get more out of their learning that they're doing if they can focus exclusively on that?
I think
like
so.
That moves them from some of the other distractions that they're just going to have naturally if they try to do online training at their workstation.
Yes, that's correct.
You said that you prefer online training. Why?
Well, I'm an introvert. I don't really need to be in a room full of people to learn. I prefer online training because it's flexible and it can save time. I think it's great for people who, I have actually an online degree. I got it all online. I never visited the school one time. And I think it's great for parents who have working parents who can work on their degrees when their kids have gone to bed, or people who travel for their jobs and can't commit to a certain day a week to attend a class can have that flexibility with online learning.
So do you work on mobile learning as well?
I do. We're just getting started with that. I really want to see that rolled out. We have a lot of people in sales or claims adjusters who are all over the country. They're always on the road. And once we can get mobile learning rolled out, like iBooks, and we have some modules for tablets that I've created, they'll be able to make use of that time when they're sitting in airports and hotels to work on their licensing and certifications. They're always learning new things or prep for product training for products that they're to know about.
Now, how is mobile training different from online training?
Well, mobile is you take it on the go. You can put it in on your little device, whatever it is, your phone or your iPad or tablet.
Okay. I have a question that I have always wondered about with some of the online training. Having degrees that require labs, how do you do that with online training?
It can be interesting depending on what it is. My son took an online speech class, and they used video. They had a video camera where they gave their speeches sitting in front of their computers, but they also sent him to a Toastmasters group so that he could have that experience. Even though his school was in Florida, he went to a local Toastmasters group in Ohio as part of his class. So they're very creative about those sorts of things.
Well, do you have any other comments that you maybe didn't get to cover because I didn't touch on them in my questions?
I just want to say I'm really thrilled about mobile learning taking off the way it is. That online learning is finally rooted in corporations, but they're just starting to understand that even though there are security issues with bring your own device to work, and they're trying to work through them, we're starting to see that it is starting to take off, and companies are finding ways to do that. I'm excited to see what happens in the next 10 years.
Wow. Well, and I think one of the things that's probably nice too is you can actually go back and see it, if I understand correctly, that you can do that. All right, well, thank you so much, Emily, for giving us some insight into mobile learning.
Thank you,
And-
Steve. Thanks for having me.
And I would like to invite our guests today to stay tuned for our next TV Toastmasters interviews.
And welcome back. That was a very interesting segment on Emily's career of being an instructional design and developer. So thank you, Steve and Emily, for educating us about that. We're now going to move on to our third speaker of the day and our second segment for the speeches. Rob Pease will be giving a speech from his Interpersonal Communication Advanced Manual. He will be working on project number 5, Asserting Yourself Effectively. It's a 5-part speech with the 3 speaking roles being a strategy to assert yourself, and then he'll follow it up with a 2 to 3 minute feedback session. So please welcome Rob Pease, crediting the customer. Rob Pease, crediting the customer.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. When dealing with customer service agents, it is easy for information to go missing or easy for information not to be relayed. I have found an experience that I've recently endured. It involved an opportunity for myself to follow up with the customer service agent when they were to have informed us of how my services for Time Warner Cable were to be relayed. I had to figure out what information the customer service agents needed in order to be able to meet my requests and also to make sure that they were implemented. So when I was speaking with the customer service agents, I was polite and very helpful to the agent. I explained that they were supposed to have come out on a Friday night and that did not happen. And I was able to communicate to their office when I called in for customer service support that it had been an hour and a half since their arrival time to be able to receive the services, that I was expecting them to install my cable and telephone services. I found that I did need to document my account with them. I acknowledged that there were times set up that were not met. This enabled me the opportunity to give the company an ample opportunity to solve the problem. The company, Time Warner Cable, had difficulty remembering that I had paid my bill before the Friday night had come. So I did take down agent ID numbers and reference numbers to back up my information. I did this in a very polite and welcoming way. I explained that there had been services not received. I also explained that I did need help and I was looking for that assistance from Time Warner Cable. Over the course of being assertive, it is important to make sure that you are offering a way for the customer and the company to win. This is also similarly known as the abundance model, as opposed to a scarcity model. The scarcity model indicates that there are limited resources and limited ways to come out of a solution. The abundance model, as I've recently learned, allows for there to be multiple winners and be able to provide a way for the company to save face in a situation where they may have been in the error. With this portion of the speech, concluding the assertive strategies, I would like to welcome my partner in this adventure, Melanie Gates. She will be playing the role of the Time Warner agent that I spoke to when I needed my services reinstated the following Monday from the Friday night that the customer service agent did not come to fix my cable. Hello, this is Rob Pease. I am a Time Warner cable customer. I am calling to verify that we do have a technician coming out to my home to fix my internet service, and also to verify some information I received last Friday night when I spoke to 3 supervisors at Time Warner Cable. With whom am I speaking, please?
My name's Melanie Gant.
Melanie, thank you so much for taking my call today. I have had some issues with Time Warner Cable recently that have not been able to fulfill the service that I requested a week ago from Wednesday. There was a timetable estimated of 6:30 p.m. on Friday night that I was expecting a technician to come to my home and help with the installation of my cable and phone service.
I apologize, sir. We have no record of that in our system. Can you give me your account number?
Yes, my account number is 00835.
Well, sir, I see that you're in our system, but I have no records or any notes of that conversation.
I did speak with Marcus at the Ridge Road location, and I made a payment that day of $55.53. But I also established with Marcus that there would be a customer service agent, a technician, that would be able to come to my home at 6:30 on Friday night to establish this services, and that I may be able to rejoin you as a cable customer in addition to the internet service that I previously had.
And you said Marcus was at the
Ridge Roads.
The Ridge Road address? Sir, do you know did you happen to get his employee number or a last name?
I do have my receipt from that date where I made the payment on Wednesday. It indicates that there was a number of 35678, and then I called in on Friday night at 8 o'clock when the technician had not arrived, and I spoke with a woman named Marissa. Marissa had indicated that I was still going to be receiving services at 8:30 on Friday night. I was specious and trying to figure out if that was going to happen, but I trusted her, and I ended up calling back in at 9 o'clock when no technician had come. At that time, I spoke with Elliot, and Elliot had indicated that I would qualify for a credit on my account due to being pushed back from Friday to the next day on Saturday.
Sir, I'm sorry and I apologize for your problems. If I write down the information, let me put you on hold just a moment. I have to get a supervisor approval for the credit, but we'll see what we can do to help you deal with your situation.
I understand. I did speak with 3 supervisors on Friday. I spoke with a Miss Joe who did not return my call. I also spoke with Sean. and Sean had indicated that we would be able to apply this credit. Given that this is another attempt for me to reach out to Time Warner Cable, I would like you to see if we have Elliot's notes indicating that he would offer me that credit.
Sir, I don't see it on your account, but let me place you on hold. I will not transfer you to a supervisor. Let me place you on hold and I'll get the supervisor on the line. Hold on just a moment.
Thank you. This is an example of how being assertive will enable a person to receive due services and also enable the customer service agent to succeed in their first call resolution that they had with me on the Monday appointment. It will also allow me to receive the credit that I was promised on the previous date from Elliot, the customer service agent who did this process of verify the credit through their dispute resolution department. And this would be an example of how the customer service agent would be able to reflect on what had previously been done and how to complete the task. At this time, I'd like to open it up to the floor for a 2 to 3 minute question and answer session to answer how to be assertive can be achieved with customer service representatives.
Do they actually give you their number? Because I asked for their name, but it never occurred to me that I should get their last name or their identification number.
Many customer service agents are not able to offer their last name for various reasons, but 90% of the customer service industry has an employee ID number, an employee agent number, or perhaps a reference number for the call. These are 3 things to document that you will be able to refer in the future, and you never know when you may need this information again, so it is highly recommended when dealing with customer service companies and customer service agents to ask for this information. It does provide you with a safeguard that your call was monitored and recorded, and it enables you to tap into that resource that the customer can still be right and offer the customer service agent that fields the call an avenue to be able to first call resolution, as that is one of the major goals of any customer service position. Do we have any other questions from the floor?
What do you do if they refuse to get a supervisor?
If they refuse to speak to me and the supervisor is not able to be reached, I ask for a callback number. If they still refuse to connect me to a supervisor, I ask for the reference number. I offer to, again, after the reference number, to speak to their supervisor. If they're still declining, I disconnect the call and I dial back to the customer service agent, and I express to the new agent that I'm speaking to that customer service representative was unwilling to assist me in connecting me to a supervisor. So I would address that next call with the request to speak to a supervisor, and if the agent still refuses, there is the possibility of taking it to the next level where you would call back again and insist upon speaking to a supervisor.
What about in the case of customer service where they're using social media instead of, say, a physical phone call? How do you document that?
That is an excellent question. The way that you document social media is that you document the time that you called or accessed the service, and you notate which customer service company you're dealing with. There's also a recommendation that you look at order numbers to be able to reference the services that you are trying to access. In some cases, there will be other number services that can be reached on the printout that you would be receiving, indicating that you made a payment, and that would provide you with the reference number in effect for social media.
What is social media?
Social media would include Facebook, Twitter. I've seen online services becoming more and more popular with the advance of the internet, that there are people able to access services online, and that's becoming a preferred model of self-service for people to receive information. Bill pay, PayPal is another form of social media that a person could use to document credits or purchases. And I see that's all the time that we have for our feedback session. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rob. I tend to let my husband deal with the Time Warner Cable, DirecTV, whatever issues we have, but I have the feeling he doesn't quite remain as calm as you do dealing with them. So great advice. Let's take a break.
Name an effective political leader in history who couldn't speak well.
I take pride in the word if.
There aren't any.
Because when it comes to a disease
Freedom
like this,
requires
there
leadership,
are no
and leadership
political
requires
parties.
oratory. You have to speak to be heard.
I have a dream.
It's all about personal growth and guts.
Never give in. Never, never, never.
We're now going to transition to the feedback portion of our meeting. This is the learning portion of our meeting where our speakers can get constructive and positive feedback from their performances today. This can't be done without having a general evaluator who has a team that will help her give feedback about the meeting and about the performances that we saw in today's meeting. I'd like to introduce our general evaluator for this evening, Carol Cormeling, Distinguished Toastmaster to the Fourth Power. Carol Cormeling.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, your fellow Toastmasters, and our most welcome guest. As Melanie, as Michelle said, this is the most important part of Toastmasters, immediate feedback on what you do well, what you can do better, and what your strengths were. It's not the kind of person that says, you did not fill any of the objectives of your speech. That sucks. That person never came back, so that's not the type of thing we do. We encourage them so they want to come back. Even if they did suck, we want them to come back and try again and do better. Our very first evaluator today for Steve will be Melanie Gant evaluating Steve Ehrenholz.
Thank you, Carol. Well, I can tell you Steve did not suck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There's an effective evaluation. Not really. Steve's objectives were to conduct a successful interview, to understand the dynamics of a successful interview or talk show, to prepare questions to ask during the interview program, to present a positive, confident image on the camera. Sometimes, Steve, you're poised. You have a lot of years in front of the camera as a TV Toastmaster, and you know when to turn towards the camera, you know when to turn towards your guest, you know when to turn back towards the camera. You did it impeccably, and that's hard to evaluate. I'll be honest. Yeah. The one thing that I think for interviews that I did not see was more engagement with your guest. I think you're really good at the questions. You had great prep for the questions, but the interaction, because you had so much more technical knowledge that I knew what she was referring to because I've dealt with insurance before, but there were pieces of her technical knowledge. You did ask at one point a technical question, or I'm sorry, a definition of a technical question, but even breaking that more for a general audience, unless you're actually interviewing her for more of a technical piece, would definitely would be helpful, at least to me. Because when I watch interviews, I assume the person in front of me a 6th grade education, and there were things like policies, though I know what they mean, not everybody's up on that. And sometimes breaking those definitions down or saying, oh, you mean such and such. You don't necessarily have to ask your guest the detail, but you can build it into your next question. So you help them define, for you're playing the everyman in your role as host, and so you basically just fill in that gap of knowledge sometimes for your guest. I think you did that a couple times, but especially when we got into the more mobile, you did a great job with saying, oh, what's a mobile? But you maybe, like the internet, well, what do you mean by the internet? Do you mean video? Do you mean audio? Are people doing podcasts? And Emily, I know this is your area of expertise, and it's probably getting too detailed, but if I'm doing a general interview, that's something that I would look for to help bridge for the audience. Again, this is getting very, very picky, Steve, because you are very, very good in front of the camera. The other thing is clothing. You're very poised and you create a very relaxed atmosphere in front of the camera, which I think is great. If you were doing this interview for a more professional setting, because Emily is in a suit jacket, I would put you in a suit. Because when you're doing a more professional setting, you command more strength in a full suit, the same way Emily did as your guest, because there's authority in your dress. You know, colors, it's one not, but one of the questions they asked is how did the speaker's appearance affect? Well, for me, you were bringing it down to your audience's level, which I thought was great. But if you were doing a more technical discussion, I definitely wanted to see you at least in a suit coat and slacks, because that gives that more detailed air of authority, which Emily had because she had the suit coat on. If you know, is this making sense? Whereas short sleeves, I'm sorry, I'm probably not being good for the camera tonight. The same way I wouldn't wear short sleeves.
I understand. We didn't talk about what we were going to wear, which I think is probably something that we had a shortcoming on our preparation.
Well, I think Emily came dressed perfect to be the technical expert, so.
I just wasn't going to come, I wasn't going to ride the plane all day in a suit. My suit is actually at home in my suitcase yet.
Well, Steve, it's one of your objectives, and they said, you know, so that's what I brought up, and I am actually over time, but I think you definitely were very effective, conversational, which I think is really important on video, because your audience is right there, as you know. You have to be like you're talking one-on-one with people, otherwise you don't sell what you're talking about to the audience. So to me, you're always have been great at it. That's why I joined TV Toastmasters, to get better at that, so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. I will try not to be precipitous with my evaluation of Emily. Emily, one of the things that it asked was, were you prepared? And what indicated is, well, this is your job that you do at work, so absolutely you were prepared. One of the things that grates on my nerves when people say basically, and I only heard you say that one time, well, basically, and I'm going, that's one of my pet peeves is basically. It said, how effectively did you answer the questions and did you show enthusiasm? You're a more quiet type of person, so I crossed out whether or not you showed enthusiasm. I put that you showed confidence, and that you answered the questions very well. Steve did ask the question when you said about classroom training. He did ask you to explain that. I thought that was good. One of the questions that asked is if you used a story or anecdote to illustrate or emphasize a point. And I missed it if you did, because I didn't hear one if you did use one. Again, in speaking about the gestures, I thought you did very well with the gestures and with explaining about the training, that you like the online training, that it saves time, but you also like an instructor in the classroom. And at first, I wasn't sure what you really like, because I thought you said you like having an instructor in the classroom, and then I thought you said later that you really liked online because it actually saved time. So I
said some people like instructors.
Some people like instructors. Yeah, I like instructors. Because I want to ask questions. And again, the appearance of your clothes, you already mentioned how professional that you looked. You looked the part, that you carried authority in what you were talking about. And if this had been a real talk show, the one thing that, I did this module, this book, way long ago when it was called Communicating on Television, and now it's called Communicating on Video. And in that one, it was only the audience, the interviewer and the interviewee. We were not to look at the audience, and I noticed several times you did look out into the audience. So I haven't read the module to see if they changed that you are supposed to acknowledge the audience, because normally
It's in there.
it's in there that you do acknowledge the audience.
Yeah, if you have a studio audience, you're checking.
You are to look, okay. So that was the only thing that I was questioning on whether or not that was in there. I think you did an excellent job, and I learned from you. Thank you very much. Our next evaluator is for Steve. Aaron Holtz will be evaluating Rob on his presentation of being assertive. Let us welcome Steve Aaron Holtz, distinguished Toastmaster, just home from out of town.
Yes, which is partly why I didn't have a suit on, because I flew in from Salt Lake City starting at 7:21 this morning. Okay, fellow Toastmasters, our guests looking in, and Rob. This was Project 5 out of the Interpersonal Communication Manual, and the title of the project is Asserting Yourself Effectively. And the objectives were to enjoy the mental and physical benefits of being assertive, to employ the 4-step method for addressing a problem and asking for help, and then to overcome resistance to your requests. Well, Rob, I think approaching customer service is always a challenge, especially with customer service people who really don't want to provide customer service. But you did demonstrate the importance of having what I put down is, I'm putting down perseverance, but polite. And then you provided strategic documentation as you were talking with the customer service representative. You had documentation that you gave them that they could then go and verify it with their files. One of the things that I would have liked you to have done a little bit better, which would have helped me, was to actually identify the 4-step approach, because I went looking to see what it was, and I know that you covered them, but if you would have given me like bullet points, you know, what each one was, because then I could have looked for it more specifically. I was trying to kind of figure out what you were doing for the 4 points. So I would have found that to be helpful. I think that you probably could be a little bit more direct as far as when you're talking to them, because I think it took the scenario a little bit long for what you were trying to accomplish. You know, you had specifics that you gave them, but after a while I was having a little trouble following all the different people you talked to. So I was getting confused, but that might just be the way my brain doesn't work when it comes to customer service. One of the other things that I want you to at least think about, you use gestures as part of your presentation. You use hand gestures and stuff, but I think that it might be a little bit more comfortable. You can put your hands down at your side rather than just holding them in front of you all the time, because I interpret that as a little bit of a protective response, and I think that you're asserting yourself. You have a right to request the service you're paying for, and you're talking to the customer service representative, and while she's not a pushover, you are not giving in either. So it's not something that you really have to be kind of, you know, trying to protect yourself. Overall, I liked your scenario. I thought it's one that we all face, and it is kind of daunting sometimes when it becomes more and more difficult to get customer service. I consider some of it passive aggressiveness. Just like I personally loathe websites because they're usually out of date, they're not up to date as far as being linked, and they usually don't have the questions I have. Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you very much for that, Steve. We will now have the all-counter and the grammarian report. Ben, would you like to come up here and give us your all-counter and grammarian report? Ben Garrett. We even put guests to work when they come if they're willing. Thank you, Ben.
Word of the day was precipitous, and Carol used it twice, once in her table topics and once in her evaluation. As far as odd counts go, I had Steve at 1 during the interview. Emily said "and" twice, and 5 other filler words. For Rob's speech, I had 1 and 1 and in Melanie's evaluation, a and a you know filler word. Carol, I had no marks for that. And for Steve's evaluation, I had 1 Toastmaster.
Listening. You put on your listening ears. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Oh, and I might as well have you stay up here because you're also the timer. If you'd like to give us your timing report.
Table topics, Melanie at 1 minute and 13 seconds. Rob, table topic, 44 seconds. And Carol's table topic, 38 seconds. For the scheduled speakers, Emily and Rob's interview, 7 minutes and 21 seconds. And that was supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes. Rob's speech was, the first part was supposed to be 4 to 5 minutes, and it was 4 minutes and 8 seconds. The second part was supposed to be 3 to 4 minutes, and it was 5 minutes. And the feedback portion was supposed to be 2 to 3 minutes, and it was 4 minutes. Melanie's evaluation was over at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 minutes. Carol's was 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and Steve's was 3 minutes and 36 seconds. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming, Ben. I will now return control of our meeting. Well, I'm supposed to give an overview of the meeting. I thought we had a very good meeting. I like Toastmasters. I learn something new every meeting that I go to, and I go to 5 a week at a minimum, and maybe 6 or 7. I would like to now return control of the meeting to our Toastmaster, Melanie. Michelle, competent communicator.
Same letter, M.
Right.
I get Michelle all the time at work, so it's,
I've been called worse things too, so.
that's true.
Well, what a fantastic meeting today. We appreciate you looking in from home. We also wanted to ask Ben, since you are our guest today, if you'd like to come up and give a few words about our meeting, if you have any thoughts. Is this your first Toastmasters meeting, or is your mom?
It's close to my first one. So,
You want to come on and just say what you thought?
This was different for me. I never did anything like in front of a camera, like record anything. It was a little bit different, but I'm glad to see other people further along. I'm in a pretty young club, and most of us are working on our competent communicator, competent leadership, and I don't know if we have any distinguished Toastmasters in the club, maybe one. So Everybody else here is further along, and it's a lot different. That's all.
Thank you, Ben. I am now going to turn it over to our president to conclude today's meeting.
Thank you, Michelle. Let's give our Toastmaster for today a round of applause. Our next meeting of TV Toastmasters will be on Saturday, June 20th. And is it going to be happening here, Carol? Yes. So it'll be happening at the Anderson branch of the Cincinnati Library, and that's on State Road. It's at the intersection of State and 5 Mile. And it will be starting at 10 a.m. Okay. We're having a little bit of changes because we're no longer meeting at the Anderson Community Television Studio. We're experiencing a little bit of transition at this point in time. Thank you all for looking in. Thank you everyone who is here in our studio this evening. I'm going to go ahead and close the Thursday, June 4th, 2015 TV Toastmaster meeting.
Bye.